Today we are going to discuss about local literary sources. What is known as local literary source? Puta muqaddami local literary source. Again, balu definition of the definition. Local literary sources means books and documents. Books and documents written by Sri Lankan writers. Sri Lankan writers. Books and documents written by Sri Lankan writers mentioning information about past human activities, past Sri Lanka, we called local literary sources. Local literary sources means books and documents written by Sri Lankans, which is known as local literary sources. All documents written by local writers we call Puta local literary sources. So we're discussing about the local literary sources, Puta. The oldest literary source, the oldest local literary source we called is equal Dipavamsa, oldest literary source. Dipavamsa. So Dipavamsa considered as the oldest local literary source. Do you know in which century it was written? It was century in Buddha, 4th century. Oldest literary source Dipavamsa written in 4th century. 4th century. Then but we can identify some mistakes in Dipavamsa, Buddha, right? We can identify some mistakes in Dipavamsa. So there are some mistakes. There are some mistakes in Dipavamsa. Dipavali Nath, Dipavali Sadaran. So we can see some mistakes. We can identify some mistakes in Dipavamsa. Because of those mistakes, we have written the next chronicle, next literary source is we called, you all know, Mahavamsa, the second oldest one, Puta, Mahavamsa. Love, oh my love, Mahavamsa, second one. Because of mistakes in the Pavamsa, Mahavamsa was written in Mahavamsa was written as a chronicle, as a literary source, 5th or 6th centuries. 5th or 6th century. So 5th or 6th century, Mahavamsa was written with lesser mistakes. With lesser mistakes. Mistakes Adiputta Mahavamsa. Dipavamsa mistakes vary. So if there is a question for you exam, which chronicle, which literary source was written with lesser mistakes, Putta, keep remember it's Mahavamsa. Mage දැසින් ඇතෙනාම කඳුලක් පාසා මට සිහිවන්නේ නුඹගේ ආදරේ. And we know now what is called a literary source, books and documents written by Sri Lankan writers. We know what was the oldest literary source, the poems in 4th century, but we can identify some mistakes. So as a result, Mahavamsa was written, composed with lesser mistakes, Buddha. Right? Then, what were the informations mentioned in Dipavamsa and Mahavamsa? What? Monada thin informations. Monoget Korotra Dipavamsa, Mahavamsa, apita dakinnata labinne. Puta, both in Mahavamsa and Dipavamsa, we can identify similar information. Information from the arrival of Lord Buddha to the end of King Mahasen. What type of information we can study from Mahavamsa and Dipavamsa? Arrival of Lord Buddha to the end of King Mahasen. arrival of Lord Buddha to the end of King Mahasin. Scholaging written what the Pata Visikarala Ayo books and documents written by Sri Lankan writers. All the source Dipavamsa, then Mahavamsa written. Information's nang arrival of Lord Buddha today and of King Mahasin. Ada mata penuninu bawa hature wadi tate. Ada mata penine oba deviyan wagi tate. එතකොට දැන් මෙහෙම සිද්ධියක් වෙන පුතා අපෙන් අහනවා who was the author of the poems මතක තියාගන්න author unknown author we don't know the author is not mentioned who was the author of Mahavamsa දන්නවා පුතා the first part of Mahavamsa the first part of Mahavamsa written by Mahanamatheru. He was lived in Dik Sandasenevia Pirivena 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 Pamanata Edian Sakakinwe Turanned Numa Matanati Veni Kiela Naimama Mahanamatheru Diksandasenavya Pirivena was part of Mahavamsa Mahanamatheru Nakapan Anora Asaka Kununisa Obet Urulu Karanma Basnel Dumutavela Bondanatharela Kalbala Minna Hasadiha Mahanamatheru wrote the first part of Mahavamsa. That's smooth, superi, right? This is we call one and only enjoying online history in English medium class. The Mahavamsa Deepavamsa. So what type of information? Ekathari, we can see the information from the arrival of Lord Buddha to the end of King Mahasin. So you can see, Puta, we can see some similarities between Mahavamsa and Deepavamsa. Yeah. There were some similarities, Puta. Samanakam dakinaham binawa Mahavamsa and Deepavamsa. How, why, what, when, kohomada make a siddha and how we can see some similarities between Deepavamsa and Mahavamsa. There is only one reason. Ekameka hetuai thiyenne puta e thamai to write Mahavamsa and to write Deepavamsa the authors had used 3 chronicles. Mahavamsa Deepavamsa liyanne puta authors la chronicles 3ක් use කරලා තිනවා. ඒ chronicles 3 තමයි chronicles 3 use කරලා තිනවා අර පොත් දෙක ලියන්න. මොනවාද ඒ literary sources chronicles 3? එකක් සීහල අට කතා Sihla Atta Katha Vinaya Atta Katha Vinaya Atta Katha Uttara Vihara Atta Katha Uttara Vihara Atta Katha Uttara Vihara Atta Katha Darling, my angel, you're my darling angel. Srihala Atta Katha Vinaya Atta Uttara Vihara Atta. We can see similarities between Deepavamsa Mahavamsa. Ayo, Deepavamsa Mahavamsa is similarity තියෙන්නේ because of 3 books. Srihala Atta Katha Vinaya Atta Katha. Uttara Vihara Atta Katha. Oh baby. විභාග ප්‍රශ්න පුතාව. And you know, Mahavamsa puta, when we read Mahavamsa, it is very difficult for us to understand Mahavamsa. The language is very difficult, puta. It's very unfamiliar to all of us. Therefore, you know, there was an annotation. Annotation can be a symbol. Symbols. There was an annotation written in order to interpret difficult parts of Mahavamsa. There was a book, Putain, simply we call there was a book. It explained the difficult parts of Mahavamsa. Mahavamsa අමාරු කොටස් ලේසි කරලා ලියපු පොතක් අපිට හම්බ වෙනවා. annotation එකක් හම්බ වෙනවා. හරියට ගත්තොත් dictionary එකක් වගේ. dictionary එකේ තියෙන්නේ අමාරු කොටස් ලේසියෙන් අපිට පැහැදිලි කරලා දීමක්. It's like annotation. So there was an annotation written in order to interpret the difficult parts of Mahavamsa. මතක තියාගන්න ඒ තමයි Mahavamsa ටීකාව Mahavamsa ටීකාව, or else we called Vansatappa Kasini. Mahavamsa ටීකා Vansatappa Kasini. එහෙනම් දැන් අපිට පුළුවන් පුතා මෙන්න මේ ප්‍රශ්න වලට උත්තර දෙන්න. What is called local literary source? Books and documents written by writers or Sri Lankan writers. The author of the poems is unknown and it is the oldest text written in 4th century. But because of the mistakes in the poems, we can identify some mistakes in the poems. So, Mahavamsa was written by Mahanama Theru who lived in Diksarasana Pirivenna. It was written in 5th or 6th century. What type of information, Buddha, we can get from the first part of Mahavamsa Deepam? Similar information, arrival of Lord Buddha to the end of King Narasimha. So we can see some similarities because it may have been influenced from 3 books. Monade etamai hatarang Sihela Atntakata Vinaya Atntakata Uttara Vihara Atntakata la 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 la. So at the same time, there was an annotation written in order to interpret the difficult parts of Mahavamsa. It's we call Puta Mahavamsa ටීකාව Vansatappa Kasini. Literary sources මෙතනින් එහාට ඉවර නෙවෙයි තව සෑහෙන තියෙනවා අපිට ස්ටඩි කරන්න අපි ඕනේ තව. The books written in Anuradhapura Rajanata civilization, then Kotte, Kandy, Gampola, Monade books, right? So we have many more things to study. So you will get to know about those areas also from the next session, right? So keep study this part, Puta. This is very valuable for you all, right? So study well. See you all then.